Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the ACCESS BLOCKBUSTERS pod. Welcome back to episode number 96. I feel like I've been saying it for the last 2 months or so. It's been episode 60, 70, 80. Wow, guys, we're getting close and close and close to 100. And all of a sudden, it's episode 96. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm getting sentimental here already, but episode 96, 4 away from 100. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us again on the ACCESS BLOCKBUSTERS pod. We have some fun things to discuss, as always. Daredevil Born Again, Season 3, ? Peacemaker, Season 2, Episode 5. I have been trying to catch up with Gen V, the first few episodes, but it's just not ideal. It comes out on a Wednesday, and then I have to do Peacemaker on Thursday, and it's just not enough time, especially when they drop 3 episodes at once. So I'm catching up and getting there. We might be able to talk about it next week. We'll see. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. We are on the road to 2,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed to the ACCESS BLOCKBUSTERS YouTube channel, make sure to do so. Give this video a like and let me know what you think about any of the topics in the comments down below. If you are interested in the audio-only platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Overcast, if you are interested in hearing the entire podcast first, a couple options now, actually. Number 1, we just launched a membership program on the YouTube channel. So if you want to see all the clips and all the clips in the full podcast on YouTube before anyone else can, you can sign up to become a member. Totally optional, by the way. And then, as well as the audio-only platform, or the audio-only podcast format, is the first place where the entire podcast is released on Saturday mornings in the United States. So if you want to check out the full podcast while the clips are slowly being dispersed throughout the week, then you can check it out there as well. That'll do it for the intro, guys. Let's get into today's topics. Alrighty, guys, a little bit of a different way to start out this week's episode. This week, I wanted to start out the podcast by actually mostly addressing the YouTube audience, which is, again, a little bit weird because this is a podcast. But ironically enough, even though this is a podcast, my main audience is YouTube. So I'm here to talk about that, and it's going to be brief, but I just wanted to say this is a milestone that I might have teased at one point on my community tab, but it's something that only I really have been paying attention to. Although, if you've been subscribed to the YouTube channel, you might have been paying attention to this as well, just subconsciously. But today, the day that this segment is coming out, because this entire podcast is coming out way earlier, so I just want to say this is really addressing the YouTube people who are just listening to this segment. Again, this entire podcast will be released a week earlier, but the day that this segment is coming out on YouTube, and I guess a week after this entire podcast is coming out on YouTube, is September 26th, 2025, which means, again, it doesn't mean anything to anyone else other than me. It means that I have made it, the ACCESS BLOCKBUSTERS YouTube channel has made it, an entire calendar year without missing an upload date. The last time there was not a video uploaded to the ACCESS BLOCKBUSTERS YouTube channel was September 27th, 2024. That is around the time, and actually you can go back a couple months before that. We started in late July, I believe, or early August, where we just started uploading every single day. And the reason we did that, the reason we could do that, is because I basically switched to the podcast format. So making the individual clips, well, I was going to stitch them together anyways for the full podcast. Why not upload them as individual clips? Now, yes, there is extra work that goes into that instead of just doing a weekly podcast upload. Things like thumbnails and SEO tags and descriptions and things like that. Of course, there's extra work, but I think it's totally worth it just to see the engagement, because honestly, and sure, we can talk about the things that YouTube, wants to talk about, like subscribers and views and whatnot. But really what I found has been so gratifying to me is this idea, or this thing I've been seeing, is that these segments, these clips, have been gateways to bringing people in to the community, to the ACCESS BLOCKBUSTERS crew, who normally wouldn't have otherwise. And I think it's well and good to do the weekly podcast uploads and just do those. And honestly, it's less work for me. But I've been really just striving to make this community and to kind of allow as many people to come in as I can. So I've been really thankful for that. And I think it's been such a joy. So just wanted to say that it's been a year straight of ACCESS BLOCKBUSTERS daily uploads. We are not going to stop that, at least I'm hoping, through the Thanksgiving Christmas season of 2025. At the end of the year, we'll probably do our usual end of year recap and all that kind of stuff. But, I think heading into 2026, I may reevaluate and just kind of see what's best for my own mental health, my own, time commitments and things like that, and how I want the channel to even just look in the future. Like, do I want the channel to have daily uploads? Do I want to kind of have all the uploads, all the clips come out on a couple days of the week instead of every single day? I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure. It's something that I have to think a lot more about. But for the time being, we're going to continue this pattern. So, and also for the YouTube reviewers who are watching, I don't know what else to put here. So I'm just in the background. You're going to see some thumbnails from recent segments and clips and things like that. And hopefully that's okay. But again, I just wanted to take this time to say thank you, because the reason I keep doing this is because more and more people are coming into individual segments and clips, and maybe they wouldn't want to watch an hour and a half long podcast episode on YouTube. That's totally fine. And maybe next year I'll take a step back from this and start doing more edited videos. I don't know. It's hard to say what the future holds, but I am really excited. Just in general, I'm just excited. I'm happy and I'm thankful. So thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you guys so much. And I just wanted to start out this podcast episode, or if you're listening to this individual segment, just wanted to say thank you. All right, let's get on with some other topics. Alrighty, guys, this conversation has to end. This is crazy what's going on here with Clayface and with the DCU and with Pattinson, and this is too much. I don't know. Let's just talk about it. So, okay, if you guys have been following and paying attention for a while now, there's been this really interesting debate. It was interesting at first, and now, honestly, I'm just kind of sick and tired of it. But the interesting debate about whether Robert Pattinson's Batman would be a part of the DCU. A lot of people think this is a good idea. A lot of people, like myself, think this is a terrible idea. And that is what it is. We can have our debates, and it's all fun. I really enjoy actually having discussions about this, and we can talk about the merits of it and why it might work, why it might not work, etc., etc. Totally fine. I'm really down for that because it's fun. It's really enjoyable to have these kinds of conversations. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we think. It really doesn't matter what we think at all. It matters what one man thinks, and that man his name is James Gunn. The only thing that matters is whether or not James Gunn wants his Batman to be Robert Pattinson and the Matt Reeves universe Batman. And that's all well and fine. That is all well and fine. The thing about that, though, is whether or not we think it's a good idea, a bad idea, we can have those debates for the rest of time. James Gunn has said many, many, many times, Robert Pattinson is not the DCU's Batman. He has said this so many times at this point. He has debunked this, and it's not me. I mean, again, I think whether or not I think this is a good or a bad idea, you can go look at as many interviews and resources and quotes as you want. James Gunn has said repeatedly, Robert Pattinson's Batman is not the DCU Batman. That's all well and fine. But then Clayface comes into the picture. And now I'm baffled by this. Because look, we almost never do segments on this podcast talking about set photos and things like that, because honestly, set photos could mean anything. And I'm acknowledging up front here that just because we're talking about set photos here does not mean that they mean anything. They could, and we're going to talk about why this is the case in just a second. But just because set photos say one thing, they could mean a whole lot of things that mean nothing for the actual finished product. And that's why it's dangerous to talk about set photos as if they're confirmed things. That being said, there are a lot of interesting things happening with this Clayface movie because apparently, and I want to stress this, I haven't even looked at a lot of these pictures because I usually try to avoid set photos, but it's hard not to ignore the headlines. There have been a lot of really interesting connections based on the set photos of Clayface to the universe of Robert Pattinson's Batman. One, they were filming some scenes at the same courthouse / facade that they filmed those scenes in the Batman. I think the one where the bomb explodes with the Riddler and around the middle part of the movie. The other couple things, apparently there were set photos. I haven't been able to see these myself, but apparently there were set photos that reference the fact that the drug Bliss, right, that they were talking about in the Penguin show, also has been seen on set, apparently. Okay, there's that. But really what prompted me to make this segment is apparently a bat symbol has been spotted. Okay, that's fine, well and good. A bat symbol has been spotted, and apparently it looks kind of similar to the one that Robert Pattinson's Batman uses. And I just have to stop and think, what is going on with this movie? And the question that I thought was, we were done, it was done and dusted, now reemerges. What universe is this Clayface movie taking place in? Now, with set photos, this is the discussion we have to have, because there are many possible explanations for what's going on here. Number one, these pictures have been doctored somehow, or there's some editing going on and none of this is real. That's very possible. Number two, it's an Easter egg. That's been pointed out. It could just be an Easter egg. Okay, fine. Number three, I find this explanation honestly the most plausible just based on what we know. These are things that they're just reusing sets and reusing designs and reusing props and things like that. And in the post-edit, when they maybe actually decide on what the official Batman logo will look like for the DCU and all those kinds of things. Then they'll cover over these things and whatever. That's fine. Because, one of the things that they do, this is a little bit of inside baseball, a little bit of backstory or background into movie making, is that, when they do costume designs and costume fittings, they actually, especially for the superhero ones, they ask the actors to wear older costumes. I think Robert Pattinson wore Val Kilmer's suit, I believe, to do an initial screen test, and I think that David Cornsweet wore some of the older suits as well to do his screen test. So maybe they're just, they're not decided on what the official Batman logo looks like, but they want to put an Easter egg there, so they just stuck the Robert Pattinson one there, and they're like, we'll just cover it over with the official design in about a year when we're getting ready to do final post-production. That's possible. Other explanation is that we've been duped, and this movie actually does take place in the DCU, and it is the Robert Pattinson universe, and they're one and the same. I can't bring myself to believe that, because James Gunn loves to debunk things and loves to get online, and he hasn't lied before about these things, which is the weird thing. Like, why would he be lying now about the fact that Robert Pattinson's Batman is not the DCU Batman? I don't understand that. It just doesn't make sense to me. There is one other really weird and wacky possibility, and I want to put this out here. You're going to see this in the same podcast episode because it's a little bit weird, but just as a little bit of a background, I record these segments in a little bit of a different order than they're actually released. So this segment in particular is being recorded before I've seen Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 5, because I need to, that's one of the last things that goes into the podcast, just because those episodes come out on Thursdays. I need to watch them and then record and edit on all those kinds of things. And then the podcast gets locked on Friday. So I haven't seen Episode 5. Maybe Peacemaker Episode 5, Season 2, Episode 5 will explain everything. A wild theory that I was thinking of, though, is, how all the doors to the different dimensions are being, put there and things like that. Is there a possibility that Robert Pattinson's Batman makes a cameo in the last few episodes of Peacemaker Season 2, and then Peacemaker just shuts the doors, just kind of a, hey, look over there, that's the Pattinson universe. And isn't that kind of cool? And then shuts the door on it, and we kind of just, it's all like hints and winks and things like that. And maybe there's some kind of melding of I don't know. I think that's some possibility of there being an explanation of this in Peacemaker Season 2, because for some crazy reason, Peacemaker Season 2 decided to open up the multiverse again, even though we're kind of getting over the multiverse, at least I am in particular. And so that is a possibility. Look, I don't know. I think the easiest explanation for all of this is that they're just reusing sets, reusing props, and Clay, I have to take James Gunn at his word that he's saying Robert Pattinson's Batman is not going to be the DCU's Batman. Why are they doing this? I don't know. And again, like I said, there could be a whole host of other explanations. This is what happens when we look into set photos too long. I'm just saying, I wouldn't have done this otherwise, but the fact that there is a literal Batman symbol being reported to be on set makes me think. So, anyways, guys, I really don't want to reopen this can of worms, because often it just leads to people name-calling and pointing fingers, but I'll ask the question, what universe do you think the Clayface movie in the DCU, allegedly in the DCU, which is what James Gunn has said, what universe do you think this takes place? And let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys, let us talk about Episode 5 from Season 2 of the DCU show Peacemaker. This is going to be, as always, a full spoiler discussion for Season 2, Episode 5 of Peacemaker, and we're at a turning point. We are at a turning point. We'll kind of discuss what that means in just a second, but I think this is the last of the episodes. I'm hoping that we're just kind of floating along, and we'll talk about why that might be the case, but this is, again, I've just been vamping for a couple seconds. Full spoiler discussion. If you have not seen the episode, make sure to save this segment, save the podcast, save the video for another time, and come back once you have seen it, and otherwise let us dive into it. James Gunn has been doing that thing, and I've said it before. I kind of personally hate when people say this, the directors or actors or whatever, where they go, oh, this episode is really when the show kicks into gear, or it's really this episode where things get crazy, etc., etc. And, I'm not saying that that's not true, right? But I feel like it would have been, and I've read Game of Thrones before actually seeing the show, so it's a little bit of a different story, I guess, for Game of Thrones, because it was based on a book. But let's just say, before the Red Wedding episode in Game of Thrones, all the directors were like, oh, just wait until whatever episode it was, in Season 3 or Season 4. Just wait for this episode. This is when it gets crazy, because all of a sudden, the entire show just revolves, or the anticipation around the show just revolves around that one episode. And James Gunn has just been blatantly doing that thing where he's like, well, the first 5 episodes are one show, but then episodes 6, 7, and 8 are crazy. And I'm like, yeah, but I'd like to have just seen that for myself and just made that discovery myself. So anyways, all that to say, we have now finished those first 5 episodes. And I was wondering, okay, so in the back of my head, thinking at the end of this episode, was there going to be something crazy? Was there going to be this huge pivot point moment in episode 5 where you're like, oh, wow, what a crazy, was Robert Pattinson's Batman going to show up out of that door? I didn't think these things were going to happen, but in the back of your head, you just kind of have to wonder because of all these different things that people have been talking about. And episode 5 was, was an episode of Peacemaker. And now I'm left waiting. I watched the preview for episode 6 because normally I don't do that. I don't normally watch the previews for next episode because I'm like, I'll just wait a week and watch the episode in full. But I'm like, maybe in this week's preview, they're going to tease something crazy happening. And, I would have read about it anyway, so might as well just check it out here. And no, the teaser for next episode, it's fairly standard. So anyways, all that to say, that was really framing my mind, my perspective around this episode, because honestly, this episode was good. It was fine. But I feel like I came to a realization about season 2 of Peacemaker as I was watching this particular episode. And again, James Gunn has said, episodes 6, 7, and 8 are going to change the way you see the show, and it's going to be crazy, and it's going to be different. So we'll see. But I feel like season 2 of Peacemaker is basically season 1. It has all of the core DNA, right? The humor, the action, the violence, the heart in certain places, and the writing, the comedic timing, and everything. And it has all of those things. I think it's just a sloppier version of it. I think these first 5 episodes of Peacemaker are fine. They're totally fine. But I feel like if you're gonna just say, okay, now the show is gonna pivot to something completely crazier, okay, maybe. But still, I just think that in the meantime, I would have liked to have seen episodes 1 through 5 be something really incredible in the meantime. And not to say that they're bad episodes. I just think that they're fine. They're good. And maybe my expectations were too high. But look, in this episode, it's what happens. What we've been leading to thus far. Argus is going after Peacemaker. Rick Flag Sr. kind of goes after or starts beating up Peacemaker. And that's something that you knew was going to happen in this show. He apparently, it seems like he was setting it up to kind of make it look like he really was trying to kill Peacemaker in that scene, but then he was going after him to set him up. And that almost worked. It ended up not working because the door closed. Again, it's this idea, the hot potato thing of open the door, move the door, try to track the door, all that kind of stuff just keeps happening over and over again. And I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of dragging the show along with it. Also, Sacha Bordeaux, I feel like at one point many years ago, I knew she was a cyborg and I just totally forgot. So when that happened in the park, I was like, what in the world is going on? There are a lot of those moments, honestly. And I think it's just going to be part of James Gunn's DCU that you're just going to have to get on board with it if you're not a fan of the comics. Not that I'm not a fan. And when I say not a fan, I don't mean that I hate the comics. I mean that I just haven't read much of the comics. So I don't know much of the lore of DC or Marvel comics outside of what I hear on YouTube and what I hear from friends, right? And so Sacha Bordeaux being a cyborg all of a sudden, I was like, what? It's okay, great, sure, fine. And it's the same thing with Michael Rooker's character, Saint Wild, I think is his name. I keep forgetting what his name is. That entire Eagle subplot, the Prime Eagle stuff, I was sitting there and I was like, this is ridiculous. And honestly, not in the good way. I think that some of Vigilante's lines, for example, are ridiculous about his animals and stuff. And Tim Meadows' Agent Flurry's stuff about bird blindness, his whole thing about not being able to tell different birds apart. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's funny. It's ridiculous, but it's funny. The Prime Eagle stuff with Michael Rooker's character, I was just sitting there going, I don't, unless this pays off big time, which it doesn't look like it's going to at all. I was just sitting there going, this is ridiculous. It's taking me out of the show completely. Again, I think that some of the things in this show are really good in the season. Like, for example, the sort of complex nature between Harcourt and Chris. And while I think that it's the classic, it's a misunderstanding because Chris thinks that Amelia Amelia hates him and whatnot. She has, complicated feelings around it, right? Because she says on the park bench, she's like, no, that night on the boat didn't mean anything to me. Okay. That's probably true. I probably take her at face value, but she obviously didn't, she didn't beat up Chris because she hates him. She beats him up because she's trying to protect him, but he doesn't know that. So I enjoy that kind of stuff because it adds more layers of character depth. It still feels like Adebayo and Vigilante aren't really doing anything. Economos is just kind of there to be comic relief, and he's good at it. I don't know, Judo Master being the one to enter the dimensional rifts. I never found Judo Master to be an interesting character, even all the way back to season 1. Just never did. And I think that maybe the Rick Flag Senior stuff is the most interesting in terms of antagonists, right? Because I feel like when James Gunn says episodes 6, 7, and 8 are going to really, be different and really turn it on and take it to a different level, I have to think that means that's when the quote-unquote real villains are going to be discovered, whether it's, I don't know, whether it's some multiversal variant or whether it really is White Dragon again being the Blue Dragon. I just think that there are so many things being thrown against the wall, whereas in season 1, and I don't always want to just compare season 2 to season 1. I don't want to do that because it's not fair. I just want to compare these shows. I want to watch these shows and watch them on their own merits, right? But still, you have to it's the reference point because this is what James Gunn did previously. It's in the same storyline and all that. And season 1 just felt like it had focus, right? It was still ridiculous. Vigilante was still ridiculous. But, Chris's relationship with his dad, the White Dragon, and his relationship, to the others and getting to know them better, and the butterflies and all that, it just felt more streamlined, with I forget his name, but Chukwudi Iwuji's character, Mern. That he felt more interesting. So I feel like a lot of things are being thrown against the wall here, where at the end, I think it's emotional, and it sort of makes sense from the perspective of Chris to be like, I'm done, I'm out of here, I'm going to the other universe. And I think it was probably a very hard choice for him to make, but it's a really sad thing for him to say, I just have nothing left here in this universe, so I'm going to go into a universe where I see myself as being happy. Again, it's one of the ways that I think multiverse can be done pretty well. But, I feel like this is sort of where the show's been heading. It's just kind of been plodding along towards that point. And now I'm sitting here going, okay, well, James Gunn, you promised us crazy. What is that crazy going to look like? I have no idea. I'm enjoying the season. I am enjoying the season. I just kind of wish it was a little bit more, I think that it's been a little sloppy thus far. And we'll have to see how the show wraps up its last 3 episodes, because I also don't want this to be Whiplash, right? I don't want it to be where you watch the final 3 episodes and you go, oh, that's amazing, but it had nothing really to do with the first 5 episodes. So we will see where this show is going to go from here. Guys, what did you think of season 2, episode 5 of Peacemaker? Supposedly the next 3 episodes are going to be very different, and so we'll stay tuned for that. That is next week. We will talk about episode 6. Let me know what you thought about episode 5 in the comments, though, down below. All right, guys. Yeah, it's a stretch. I know it's a stretch. We're talking about one image and literally nothing else. Yeah, I get it. That being said, we got a new image from Star Wars Starfighter. Yes, it's just the one image. Yes, there's literally nothing else we can glean from it other than what we see. And the caption that Sean Levy posted with the picture for Star Wars Starfighter, which I would argue has some significance. I want to say, though, and this doesn't always happen. Sometimes you just see a first look image. I mean, the first look image they posted of Star Wars Starfighter way back when they did the cast announcement, like 3 weeks ago. It was fine. It's whatever. This image, though, this image has me excited for a couple of reasons. But let's just talk about the image. So the image, it's Ryan Gosling. Look at that. It's Ryan Gosling. He's in Star Wars. I mean, you can't really tell based on this image. He's just kind of wearing general sci-fi-y sort of clothes. And that's fine. I mean, at first glance when I looked at it, I was like, yeah, that's Star Wars. I can see that. And then also another actor, Flynn Gray, who is behind him as well. Again, just, Star Wars. It almost looks like Flynn Gray would fit more into the vibe of Skeleton Crew just based on the way he's dressed, but I digress. And I love Skeleton Crew, by the way. Skeleton Crew was such a fun ride in. Yeah, it looks like Flynn Gray, I think it looks like he's going to fit in right in with the Skeleton Crew. So anyways, but, I would like to see that crossover. It seems like it's in the same time period, but, I don't think that's going to happen because Skeleton Crew, not many people saw it, which you should, by the way. This is not an ad for Skeleton Crew, but you should if you haven't seen that show. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, we see Ryan Gosling, we see Flynn Gray, they're in front of the ocean, or in front of, what looks like an ocean, but we know that they're not filming in front of an ocean because of what Sean Levy posted the caption underneath it, which was simply titled Somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea. And like I said, we don't always do big things on first look images. We didn't do a segment on Doctor Doom, the concept art, or even the video show, because what was I going to say? There are plenty of other channels who did huge deep dives into what every single costume detail meant for Doctor Doom and what every single motion he made in the light show meant. I don't usually do that kind of stuff because if I don't have anything I can add to the conversation or just sharing my own genuine thoughts other than, oh, that's cool, which is what I thought for Doctor Doom, then I'm not really going to make a segment about it. But this has me excited for a couple different reasons. Number one, because we just haven't seen something like this in Star Wars for a long time. In movies, we just haven't seen this. And you can say, well, The Mandalorian and Grogu is coming out next May. Fair. It is coming out next May. But I think a lot of that movie was still filmed on the volume, and I don't think they really used real sets and they went on location and things like that. I think it really was still filmed in the style of The Mandalorian. So to me, I mean, it's an extension of the television show, because the television show looks like that, and it's fine, it's whatever. I think sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't, and it's whatever. But to see Sean Levy do what he did for Deadpool and Wolverine, where yes, there were set leaks. Like you could see the 20th Century Fox logo in the background of some of the set photos. And they were fine with that leaking because they wanted to get the sense of a live and real environment. And I love that Sean Levy is doing this again for Star Wars. It's going to bring, I think, such a unique and fresh iconography, imagery for this Star Wars film that I am actually quite excited about. Some of my best, the best scenes and best memories of watching Star Wars in the modern age, the sequel trilogy age, were films like Rogue One, where you were on the beach of Scarif, and I don't know where they filmed that. They could have filmed it all in a studio, and that's fine. But the way it looked, at least, and they're on the beach, and you can feel the tactical, the boots on the ground sort of nature of it all, and I love that kind of stuff. So that's number one. That's one thing that gets me really excited. And number two, they're filming. It's happening. Like this movie is actively in production. I know that with the cast announcement that they announced that they had started filming, but just seeing a picture of them saying, "Yep, camera's on, we're rolling," is like, oh wow, they're going. They have a release date of May 28th, 2027. So again, I mean, they set a target for themselves, but how many times have we said this about Star Wars movies where they've been announced, they've even started filming, like Solo: A Star Wars Story, and they just don't happen. So this, to me, this image represents a lot of hope, right? Star Wars hope. And I am just actually getting more excited. Ryan Gosling, there maybe have been questions about, is he going to fit in? Is his vibe and look going to fit in with the Star Wars universe? Is he going to be jarring? Like Project Hail Mary, it looks like he's a perfect fit for that movie. Recently just read the book, love the book. Looks like he's going to be a great fit for Ryland Grace. But for Star Wars is kind of distinctive. It looks like he's going to fit in great. I'm excited. Just like how Jude Law, I thought, fit in really well with Skeleton Crew. I think he's going to fit in great with Star Wars. So I am very, very excited from this first real image from the set of not Skeleton Crew. I love Skeleton Crew. This is Star Wars Starfighter. Guys, what do you think about this image of Ryan Gosling and Flynn Gray from the set of Star Wars Starfighter? Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys, you know what's really exciting? Batman. And you know what's even more exciting? The Batman Part 2. And you know what's even more exciting than the Batman Part 2? Is news about the Batman Part 2. That's right, guys. I think as the days are going on, as the script's been completed, as Matt Reeves finally gears up for pre-production on the Batman Part 2, which is going to be filming, I believe, early next spring, we are getting more and more news, tidbits here and there about the story and about just what's happening with the Batman Part 2. And I'm hoping that in the coming weeks and months, we might be getting some maybe teases of the costume or some other characters, castings, even the villain. I'm very excited. I am very, very excited, if you can't tell. The Batman is perhaps my favorite DC movie that's been released in the last 10 years. I think that's pretty fair to say, honestly. I think The Batman is my favorite DC movie, maybe in the last 15 years. It certainly, to me, rivals The Dark Knight and Batman Begins as my favorite Batman movie of all time. I think it is one of my favorite DC movies of all time. I love The Batman. Love The Batman. And so we've just been waiting on pins and needles for anything about the second movie. And finally, recently, Matt Reeves has turned in the script for the Batman 2. Everybody is raving about it. Colin Farrell says it's great. He said that he himself, the Penguin, doesn't have a big role in it. And other people like James Gunn, who, it's his job to say good things about his projects. But still, he's been pretty honest of saying, some projects haven't worked out here and there. We're waiting for Matt Reeves, et cetera, et cetera. So, he is a quote-unquote homer in the sense that, he has to say nice things about his projects. But still, it's nice to hear that he likes the script a lot. And now, at the Emmys, I think, Matt Reeves was giving an interview about the Batman Part 2 and talking about Kristen Milioti as Sophia Falcone, and unfortunately, he had some bad news to deliver. So, we've all been wondering, since the Penguin finished up, what is Sophia Falcone's role in the DCU, but in the Batman universe going to be moving forward? Is she going to appear in the Batman Part 2? Is there going to be a Penguin Season 2? What's the deal? And we've now gotten direct confirmation from Matt Reeves himself that Sophia Falcone will unfortunately not be a part of the Batman Part 2. And this is a bummer, but if you listen to the reasoning, which we're going to get into in just a second here, it makes sense, but it's still, I'm still disappointed by the news, but let's get into the quotes before we dive into analysis for too quickly here. So this is what Matt Reeves had to say. Quote, Kristen's not in this one. So again, up front, just being very, very transparent about the whole thing. He continues on, quote, but that's because we were so deep into the script by the time we were in the show. So, he means the Penguin. But we'll see. I mean, I think she's incredible. Yeah, I think so too. What she did in the show is just astonishing. And what Lauren LaFranc, who I think was the showrunner of the Penguin, did in creating that character, I mean, creating this version of the character is so special. And I think, it speaks to how big of an imprint she had, the character of Sophia Falcone, on all of us. He continues on, he says, quote, so it'd be really exciting to do something with her, but she's not in this one, in full disclosure, just because we were so far along in the story that it was like, oh gee, we could, but it might upset the apple cart, let's say, given where the story goes and what we were exploring. There are some things where it's like, oh, we'd love to do this, but actually that doesn't fit within where the story goes. So, you have to respect it, right? On the one hand, you have to respect it because, yeah, I mean, if he has a story and if the story just doesn't deal with the sort of criminal underbelly of Gotham in that way, because I'm sure it will deal with the criminal world of Gotham City and this Matt Reeves Batman universe in some capacity, but if it doesn't deal with it in the same way that the Penguin does, and, if Oz, maybe, because Oz is now kind of on top as the Kingpin, and Sophia is in prison, right? So maybe that's more of where we're going here. There were some hints that Zoe Kravitz's character, Selena Kyle, was going to interact with her half sister, Sophia Falcone, maybe. But it also, there have been some interesting reports and rumors recently that Sophia will not be in the Batman Part 2, but also that Catwoman won't be in Batman Part 2, which is interesting. Seems like she'd be a pretty pivotal character in the movie, so we'll have to see about that. But yeah, I think, it makes sense, right? And you'd hope that in a Batman Part 3, that she would reappear, as Sophia Falcone. But again, I mean, I think we'd all much rather, in my opinion, I mean, it'd be great to have her appear in the Batman Part 2 for 3 minutes, if that's really what it was. But I think, really, I'd much rather just see her in the Penguin Season 2. And at this point, with the Penguin doing as well as it did, Emmys-wise, and not completely closing the door on a Season 2, I mean, it ended somewhat definitively, but, not entirely. I think there's plenty of room for a Season 2. It really will just be, can they find the right story? Can they find the right direction? And then we'll go from there. So, guys, Kristen Milioti, Sophia Falcone will not be in the Batman Part 2. It's disappointing, but still, I think that we have so many exciting directions to go from here anyways that I'm still very excited for the future of both the Penguin and the Batman. What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys, it is awards season, kind of. The VMAs were actually a couple weeks ago, but no, we're here to talk about the Emmys. The award season that we usually refer to in the movie space is the sort of winter, springtime, February, March area where we talk about the SAG Awards, the Writers Guild's Awards, and of course the Oscars, but the Emmys, celebrating the best in TV, just happened. And we're here to talk about some of the interesting things. Some things that, relate to shows that we haven't really been talking about, some shows that I haven't even watched personally, but also some shows that we have been covering very extensively on the ACCESS Blockbusters YouTube channel and the ACCESS Blockbusters pod. So the Emmys, hosted by Nate Bargatze, who has done some really funny SNL sketches that I've seen. It was hosted by Nate Bargatze, and they had some really interesting surprises, I think. I personally don't have a huge stake in it. I did some predictions for the Oscars, and so that was fun. And even then, it wasn't for money or anything. It was just for fun. But still, I think that they, some really interesting shows and some really interesting reveals happened. So let's go through some. We're not going to go through every single category. We're not going to go through every single winner or loser or things like that. Again, it's not, I put a lot more emphasis on the Oscars here, just because I don't have time to watch every single TV show that comes out that is nominated for Emmys, but I try to have enough time to watch the Oscar shows, so that's why we do, or the Oscar movies rather, that's why we do that. But some interesting notes here. First of all, some big winners of the night. The Pitt. The Pitt won. The Pitt is a show that I haven't seen personally, but it looks like it only won 3 awards actually, but it won the big one. It won the Best Drama Series award, which is really cool. I like how, sometimes you see a land or a wave coming of just pure dominance from a show, but it looks like the Pitt didn't win a whole lot of awards in terms of volume, but it won 3 awards for itself, including Best Drama Series. Severance also took home some awards, and Tremel Tillman, who will be in the upcoming Spider-Man Brand New Day, was the first Black actor to win an Emmy for Best Supporting Actor in a drama series, which is awesome. It's great. Another show that I personally haven't seen, but seemed like it did really well, was a show called Adolescence. Adolescence it looked like was one of the bigger winners. 15-year-old Owen Cooper was the youngest to win the best actor role, I believe, in a drama series. So that is, again, it's just a really cool thing, just to showcase talent that perhaps not a lot of us have seen before, and people that we are just not as familiar with. The Studio, the show that I talked about on the ACCESS Blockbusters pod, really funny show, really interesting show about the Hollywood space in a satirical way, won 4 awards. Seth Rogen won his first ever Emmy as well. So that is, again, good for him. I mean, I think we don't often associate Seth Rogen as an Oscar or an Emmy winner contender, but he won his first Emmy here, and I think that is pretty well deserved. In terms of shows, though, that we do talk about a lot, let's talk about Andor, and let's talk about the Penguin. So Andor was nominated for the titular Best Drama Series, which is in itself a huge thing. It did not win. It did not win Best Drama Series. Obviously, we just talked about the Pitt won Best Drama Series. However, Andor did take home a very prestigious award. It took home the award for Best Writing in a Drama Series, and that is no small feat. Again, the Andor being stacked up against every single other drama show won the award for Best Drama Writing. And I think that's awesome to see that Andor, well, again, yes, it did not win the Best Drama Series award in itself, and I think there was a little bit of controversy that none of the actors themselves got nominated, I believe, for the Emmys, and so obviously none of them won. It still took home one of the more, I think, one of the more respected and revered awards, at least in terms of the industry. Because again, writing is a very, very, very important role in terms of making these shows what they are. And Andor winning that is a huge, huge deal. So very, very, very happy for it, because again, one of the things about Andor that is so cool is that it's so sophisticated in the way that it treats Star Wars. It's really building up to the rebellion and how you get from the end of Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope in a very seamless and understandable way. And I think that that's a really cool thing. So we're huge props to Andor. And finally, the Penguin. Kristen Milioti won the Best Actress Award for her role in I think it was a limited series or a drama series or whatever the category was. And that is, again, so well deserved. I mean, she crushed it as Sophia Falcone. You can go back and watch any of or in fact, if you start from the beginning of my spoiler discussions for the Penguin, you can just track the progression, because I didn't know who Kristen Milioti was. In fact, I don't think many of us did before the Penguin. I don't think hardly any of us knew who Kristen Milioti was. But she has made her presence known. She's going to get a lot of acting roles after the Penguin. And we've already talked about, on this podcast about the Batman Part 2 and her role in it. But again, I think that she's going to get a lot of attention in Hollywood for her performance as Sophia Falcone just throughout the series. As I was reviewing it, every episode I just became more and more and more impressed with her performance. And I think it culminated, I think it's episode 3, 4, or 5. It's somewhere in there, where that was just a complete flashback episode to Sophia's backstory. And that was it was incredible what she was able to do. One of the standout episodes of The Penguin for sure. Also noteworthy as we close out this segment, Stephen Colbert, who is the host of The Late Show on CBS, and there's a whole lot of factors into why, but his show had recently gotten canceled, and so he very, I think deservedly so, got a standing ovation at the Emmys, and it was cool. I think that's just one of those more heartwarming scenes where, somebody who's respected in the industry, and I think he's really funny and sharp. He got, praise deservedly so. And I think that wherever he goes next after The Late Show, I'm really glad that he got recognition for his work on that show. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of really fun storylines here. Obviously, we talked about Adolescence, The Pit, The Studio. I think Severance and The White Lotus also took home some big awards as well. And then obviously our shows that we've been following with Andor and The Penguin also took home some big awards. It was a good night, I think, for a lot of fun TV shows and some shows that I definitely have to catch up on myself. And you guys will have to let me know in the comments which one of these shows you would recommend that I watch and tackle next after we finish up our Defender Saga rewatch, which we're still in the midst of, so that's mostly taking up my time in my spare time. But after that, who knows? Who knows? Guys, did you have a chance to see the Emmy winners? And let me know, like I said, what your favorite shows were from the nominees and the awards winners, and if there were any surprises or things that you were happy about from the Emmys. Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys, one of the questions that's been up in the air, Wonder No More. It's official. It's coming from Marvel themselves. Daredevil is returning, not just for season 2, which hasn't come out yet. We haven't even seen a trailer for season 2, and we don't even know when it's going to release, but I think a lot of indications seem to point to the fact that it'll probably be releasing around the same time that season 1 did this year. This year, isn't that crazy? Daredevil Born Again, season 1 came out this year, and season 2 is coming out next year. And we're excited about it. I'm excited about it because even though I didn't particularly love Daredevil Born Again Season 1, because I just think it was messy, you can kind of tell where the chops and edits were made when they were reshooting a lot of the season and rewriting it. I still thought it had promise, and I think Season 2 is going to have even more promise. And now, confirmation, we are getting a Daredevil Born Again Season 3. And this wasn't a confirmed thing, because if you guys remember, we've done segments about Charlie Cox saying, well, yeah, this is the final season. And then Vincent D'Onofrio was like, no, that was just him misspeaking. It's not the final season. He might have been indicating last season, as in saying, this previous season, right? In this last season, right? That's a way that people can speak, and it got misconstrued. And now Brad Winterbaum, who is the head of Marvel's television division, Marvel's TV division, television division, that is a mouthful, has officially confirmed it. He said this: in terms of Daredevil, yeah, we are greenlit for Season 3, and we start shooting next year. And one of the things that we talked about a while ago is that Marvel is changing their approach to how they do television, right? Before, they were going to do these big event-style television shows, one-offs, miniseries with the big MCU stars, Elizabeth Olsen, Anthony Mackie, Tom Hiddleston. They were going to do all those big shows and sort of make it be the same as a movie, just cut up into 6 or 8 episodes, right? I mean, WandaVision was more of a television series, and I think that's one of the reasons, honestly, it succeeded, whereas Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki, Season 1 especially, they were more like cut-up movies in a sense. But now Marvel is taking a different approach and being like, okay, well, people are getting frustrated because they feel like they have to watch all these different shows, and they don't understand what's going on. Why is Wanda doing this? Why is Wanda doing that? So we're going to scale back a little bit, and we're going to go back to the model of multiple seasons for shows. The only show that did that previously was Loki, Season 2. And I would argue that it's really Loki Season 1, Part 2, not Season 2. I've talked about this ad nauseum. And they're deciding to do that and try to release shows yearly, because it seems crazy in this day and age. If you guys have grown up only with streaming, you guys are like, oh no, we're used to the 2 or 3 years or 4 years between seasons. Before that, with sitcoms especially, they would crank out seasons every single year. There was a new season of The Office, of Friends, of Seinfeld, of The West Wing, every single year, pretty much. Every maybe, year and a half, there was a new season. And so I think going back to this model, it's a great thing. I'm really excited. And the other unspoken thing about all of this is that they have a lot of confidence in Season 2. There is no, let's kind of wait and see, did we fix the mistakes that we made in Season 1? And are we feeling good about Season 2 in that regard? And then we'll go into Season 3. None of that. Because, Season 2, I'm not going to say it was Part 2 of Season 1, just like Loki was. But, in a sense, when they originally greenlit Daredevil Born Again, it was 18 episodes. And it was going to be a much different show, granted. So I'm not saying that they just cut up one season into 2 necessarily. I think that they did rework a lot of things, and they're going into Season 2 a very different approach. Obviously, Jessica Jones is coming back, so we'll see her again. But I think that Season 2 was almost a given at that point, right? We'll kind of see how Seasons 1 and 2 go and then evaluate from there. But Season 3, I don't think ever was a given. And the fact that Marvel is like, yeah, let's do it. Let's shoot it next year. And we're going to get it probably 2027. Just a new season of Daredevil every single year. That is awesome. That's so awesome. I think that even the original series almost did something similar, where it was like Daredevil Season 1. I think a year or two later, Daredevil Season 2. And then he showed up in Defenders. A couple years later, he showed up in Season 3. So, and that's sort of the model that they did with characters like Iron Man, right? Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2 a couple years later, Iron Man 3 years later, but he shows up in the Avengers, he shows up in Age of Ultron, Infinity War. So it's exciting, it's really exciting. Whether or not he shows up with Punisher in Spider-Man Brand New Day, I think is a different question. I feel like once Punisher was announced, people were kind of like, well, wait, what's going on here? Where's the connection? Is there any connection? Because we kind of thought Marvel was going to completely silo the TV and movie divisions and storylines, even for the most part, but it seems like they are willing to cross them over to a certain extent, and we will see how that plays out. I'm very curious to see, are there any ramifications from the Punisher special television presentation? Are there any ramifications from Daredevil Born Again Season 2, which will presumably come out before Spider-Man Brand New Day? Is there anything going on from those TV episodes and TV presentations that will affect the movies? I'd be very curious to know, because I think it's going to be very telling to see how all of that goes and sort of manifests itself into Marvel's current strategy for movies and television crossover. So guys, Daredevil Born Again Season 3 officially confirmed by Brad Winterbaum. So it's from Marvel. It is greenlit. It is going. We are shooting next year. Very, very, very exciting. What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments down below. And guys, that will do it for episode number 96 of the ACCESS Blockbusters pod. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, stay tuned. Next week, apparently Peacemaker Season 2 is going to get crazy. Also, we might have some trailers on the horizon, so we'll see about that. Subscribe to the ACCESS Blockbusters YouTube channel, road to 2,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for joining us. Audio-only platform Spotify, Apple Podcast, Overcast. Join us there and leave a review. That will do it for me. Episode number 96 of the ACCESS Blockbusters pod. I will see you guys in the next one.